Hi, Hokies. I'm Tech Sideline founder Will Stewart. Welcome into episode 242 of the Tech Sideline podcast, which we think is going to be an interesting one. We've got Nick Rush of Commonwealth NIL with us today, and we're going to talk about name, image, and likeness, NIL, in college sports. We'll have a couple of announcements. We'll talk about what Commonwealth NIL does. We'll talk about some of the crazy NIL stories floating around the college sports. But most importantly, we'll talk about what you, the average Hokie fan, can do to help Virginia Tech not just compete, but win in NIL. It's all coming up on the Tech Sideline podcast right now. All right, welcome back in after that snazzy intro. Before we get started, let me address the elephant in the room. Yes, the ACC came out with this new scheduling model yesterday, and yes, we want to do a podcast about that. But we've had Nick and the topic of NIL booked for a while, so that's today's topic, and I think you'll find this very educational and interesting as well. So without further ado, let's get to the introductions. It's just me and my guest on set today. We got the usual producers, of course, Malcolm and Nick Brown's sitting in helping produce. So let's get to my guest on set today, and that is Nick Rush, who is owner, founder of Commonwealth NIL. Is that the best way to put it?
Yeah, I think that's the best way. I did found it with my son, Forrest Rush, who's right. Who's a graduate of Virginia Tech, a U.S. Army officer, Iraq War veteran. So it's not a mom and pop, but a pop and son operation.
Yeah. Okay. So again, it's called Commonwealth NIL. So let me ask you before we get into NIL and what Commonwealth NIL does, what is your background and what made you want to get into this space? Why did you think you had something to offer of value to help Virginia Tech here?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on here. Long time TSL lurker, very random, rarely post, but read all the comments and the stories and just enjoy your site so much. Let
me jump in here and give everybody a little background. You and I have actually been talking for months.
Yeah.
Nick and I didn't know each other until you reached out. When do you think you emailed me? It's July and.
Yeah.
What was that, like February maybe?
Probably February, yeah.
So he emailed me. He emailed me and I get a ton of emails.
Yeah.
First of all, Nick's learning that I interrupt a lot.
No, you're cool.
I get a ton of emails, but I remember some of them. And you emailed me and you said, "Hey, Will, this is Nick Rush, something like big fan of the site. I want to talk to you about NIL." Short to the point, and I'm like, okay, I'll talk about NIL.
Yeah.
So anyway, I interrupted. So I asked you why you were getting into this space.
No, so I'm a long time. Lived in, was born and raised in New River Valley. Went into the Army, came back, and got elected to the Montgomery County Board of Supervisors at age 23. That was 31 years ago, and kind of have been a government and business leader since that time for about the last 31 years. And so I was serving in the General Assembly. I served there for 10 years, represented Montgomery County, Pulaski, Floyd, and started following this NIL space. I was a huge college sports fan, big Virginia Tech fan, long time, season ticket holder, and was going to the games. We were talking about some stuff here before we got on air, some of the big events that, we all had in common, Virginia Tech beating Duke at home. I think our first year in the ACC.
In basketball.
Yeah. And I think in football too. I think that was our first.
So the first ACC football game they served up was Duke in Lane Stadium, which was very nice.
Very nice.
Tech beat him like 40-17 or something like that.
Yeah, and I don't even think it was that close.
It wasn't that close.
Brandon Roush had a huge hit on that quarterback.
That's right.
So Brandon was down in Richmond with us because Aaron Roush, not Brandon, Aaron. And so Aaron Rouse was down in Richmond visiting the General Assembly, and I asked him
he's in politics big time.
He is. He's on Virginia Beach City Council. He's running for state senate. But I asked him about that hit, and he's like, "Man, I always get so much grief about that hit." He said it was a legal hit, and I was like, "I know."
I remember that. Thad Lewis was that quarterback.
Yeah, that's it. And I think we knocked out two other quarterbacks that day. But that was what we were discussing earlier. But so I've followed this, while it's started in a case in California, made its way all the way to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said you couldn't stop athletes from using their name, image, and likeness. And so at that point, I knew Virginia had to act to make sure our universities didn't fall behind. And so I helped craft the language that was used, and I forget the exact time, and maybe about 18 months ago.
So you were in the House of Delegates.
Yeah, I was in the House of Delegates. So I helped craft that language.
Okay.
It was budget language, which doesn't mean anything to anybody else. But so they actually put a new law in this year that updated some of the stuff. And I did follow that and gave some input on that, just because, you want to make sure your state is competitive.
Right.
And so, I thought, after 31 years of being involved, and I wanted to stay involved, I did retire from politics. But with my connections and my ability to connect with people and bring groups together, I thought this would be a good way for me to use some of my spare time to help Virginia Tech in this space.
Yeah.
It's just so important. We're seeing it all throughout the country. It's important that we have a good, strong name, image, and likeness program associated with Virginia Tech, and I think Commonwealth, and there's two others. I think with those three partnerships with Virginia Tech Athletics, it's going to work out for us.
Pretty much cover the spectrum.
Yeah,
I'm dying to ask you what made a 23-year-old get into politics, but we got to stick to the topic here. That's
I'm just like hyper competitive.
Yeah, all right. So let's see. Let me look at my list here. So I'm going to ask you more about Commonwealth NIL here in a moment. We're going to get into a lot of stuff. But first, there are people out there who don't know what NIL is. They don't know what all this means. Most people do that follow us and listen to the podcast and things like that. So let's briefly, you've said NIL stands for name, image, and likeness. Mm-hmm. Explain to a fan who doesn't know what that means in the landscape of college athletics.
Yeah, so the NCAA prohibited athletes from profiting from what is called name, image, and likeness, and that's basically endorsements.
Doing endorsements or selling goods with your name.
Selling goods with your name, and at some point during the season, college athletes weren't even allowed to have jobs.
Right.
So that it had been restricted so much by the NCAA, and they had their reasons whether you agreed with them or not, but that was the rules. And the state of California, and I can't remember exactly if it was a couple players, but out of California, it went through the court system, and the Supreme Court said that was illegal, anti-commerce, against the Commerce Clause of the Constitution, and so the Supreme Court ruled that it was unconstitutional to keep athletes from profiting from their name, image, and likeness. And so that opened up a floodgate.
And so basically, and this was allowed by the NCAA starting almost a year ago. I think it was July of 2021.
Yeah, I think it was.
And what drove me crazy about it was the NCAA basically washed their hands of it, and instead of making up any rules at all, they just said, fine, do whatever you want. And that's led to a lot of events and discussions.
Well, and I think we're going to get to some of that at the end. But once the NCAA kind of washed their hands of it, the Congress, not surprisingly, didn't act to put in regulation. So it did leave it up to the states, and that's where, in my role as an elected official representing this area, I wanted to make sure our rules were as such that Virginia Tech, and to a lesser extent UVA. I joke.
I kid.
Yeah, I'm kidding. All the rules are the same. I didn't have a carve out for Virginia Tech, but we wanted to make sure our universities were competitive nationally. So actually, when we were following the law this year, I was looking up, and TSL fans can look it up. I think Alabama did away with their NIL law, so there's literally no regulation. Or at least no laws down in Alabama that
there's a couple other states, basically SEC football states.
A lot of SEC football states
right.
Did that, and and just so the fans know, there's a lot of folks out there going, well, Congress is going to have to act to put some guardrails in. And, if you think about this, I mentioned this on Kyle Bailey's show down in Charlotte the other day. If you think about it, these state senators from SEC states are not going to do anything that takes away their state schools'
ability to thrive and prosper.
Yeah, had advantages.
Yeah.
And so I would look at your state government and NCAA for your regulation. I doubt the federal government acts.
Yeah. So let's clarify two rules, because this is important to the conversation later.
Yeah.
Basically, the NCAA did put in two rules in place. They said, number one, the schools cannot broker the deals directly.
Correct.
They can facilitate. And in the case of Virginia Tech, for example, they've set up a Hokies Exchange platform that will connect businesses and athletes, but the school cannot bring a business to an athlete and help them strike the deal directly.
Yeah,
that's one rule.
That's one rule. And also the school itself, along those same lines, can't pay the athlete themselves. Like, Virginia Tech can't pay the starting quarterback $100,000. But they can help facilitate. They can connect collectives like ours to folks that may be interested in participating in name, image, and likeness for their athletes.
And the other rule is, and this just makes me laugh, you cannot use comical. NIL to entice recruits, high school recruits, or transfers to come to your school.
Correct.
And that's just, it's like the old rules. You can't pay players to come to your school. They did it under the table anyway. And so there's a lot of stuff out there that's going on under the table. And we'll tell a few stories later.
Yeah.
So give me yours. Let's get into Commonwealth NIL and what you guys do. So the way I phrase it is, give me your 30-second elevator pitch on what is Commonwealth NIL and what do you do?
Yeah, so we're a Virginia-based LLC. We're a collective. That's the business model we're going to use going forward. We want to engage all of Hokie Nation. That's all the way up from what we call elite investors all the way down to casual fans. We want to do that through subscription service, events, memorabilia, and to allow fans to engage Hokie. We want to engage Hokie Nation, and we want to turn our athletes into stars and stars into our athletes. And if you think about that three-part mission statement, that elevator pitch is, once we engage all of Hokie Nation, we will have the resources to recruit and retain the best possible talent for Virginia Tech athletics.
All right. So to that end, we'll get into what you mean by subscriptions and things like that.
Sure.
We'll get into the specifics of that. But you have a big announcement today about athletes that you have already signed. So tell us who you have signed with Commonwealth NIL, and this is hot off the presses.
Yeah, no, so finished up the contracts this morning, and we started working on this project. We call it #RunItBackVT, and it's dealing with Virginia Tech basketball, following up on their historic ACC championship in ACC basketball tournament this year. And so we've signed Justin Mutz, Hunter Couture, Darius Maddox, March Maddox, and Sean Padula. All have signed with Commonwealth NIL to help promote #RunItBackVT.
Right.
And we've got their merchandise on our website, CommonwealthNIL.com. We've got we get T-shirts. We've got what we call fan collector coins, challenge coins, and I think we're going to have some success with that. We've already had some success. We had a brunch where the athletes came, and we had it at Lane Stadium. It was well attended, local businesses, some elite investors, and so we put together some resources there. And we want to engage Hokie Nation to keep that process going.
Yeah. Okay. So let's see. I do want to at this point announce that we Tech Sideline have a partnership with Commonwealth NIL, and what that means is that we are going to help promote Commonwealth NIL's services, promote the collective, tell Hokie fans how they can be a part, contribute, promote the merchandise, and you mentioned a couple of things, but there's a lot more coming later on, So you'll see, we'll drop a link for you to click down in the description of the video. that'll take you over to Commonwealth NIL's site. Is it CommonwealthNIL.com?
Yeah.
Don't go there yet.
Yeah.
Wait for that tech sideline.
Yeah,
link.
do that. Yeah.
And as soon as we get that podcast wrapped up, I'm also going to start putting some ads on the site for Commonwealth NIL. Now, in the interest of full disclosure, our relationship with you means that we Tech Sideline will have a financial relationship with Commonwealth NIL. Any business that we drive your way, we will get a small percentage of it because this is all about the money going to the athletes. It's not about it coming to Commonwealth NIL or Tech Sideline.
Yeah, right. That's correct. So that's a great segue into, a subscription. 80% of all the subscription monies will go to the athletes. That's a cut for Commonwealth NIL, and we have expenses. Infrastructure of maintaining this. We have folks that'll be helping us in sales and in making sure the athletes are at events on time,
right? Scheduling,
doing the books, all those things. And honestly, we didn't get into this to get rich, but we do have to have a for-profit model. So that we can continue to facilitate deals. I think that's important. And so we do estimate our profit margin to be anywhere between 5 and 6%.
Right.
Yeah.
So because as you get larger, and trust me, I'm in the subscription business.
Yeah, you get it. Man.
Things like customer service get created. There's a ton of programming expenses and stuff like that. So let's start to get into the specifics of it. I want to get into how Commonwealth NIL generates money.
Sure.
And there's a number of different ways you do that. One of the quickest and easiest to understand. First of all, you can just flat out donate money to Commonwealth NIL. And you've had some, like you said, what you would call elite investors.
Elite investors, yeah.
People with $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 or more. Trust me, or more is welcome.
Or more is cool. But let me tell a cool story about.
Okay, go ahead.
So when Virginia Tech announced that our affiliation with Virginia Tech Athletics, I had a guy reach out and say, "Look, I want to donate to the hashtag Run It Back VT campaign." And he said he wanted to donate $5,000. And so once I got that email, I'm gonna give a guy a call, right? And so I gave him a call, and so we're talking just like you and I and the fans are now. And I said, "So when did you graduate from Virginia Tech?" He said, "Well, I didn't." And I was like, "Oh, really?" He said, "No, I just became a fan, in the 90s. Grew up in Virginia. He lives in North Carolina now. Grew up Virginia Tech fan. I went to a different, smaller school. Always have been a fan." And he said, "I'm just tired of these other schools always out resourcing us."
Right.
And he said, "I want to be involved in this." He said, "I want to help, help this basketball team with the hashtag Run It Back VT campaign." And he, on point, man. I called him. I said, "Hey, we're launching the fund. Everything's set up." 2 days later, a $5,000 check came.
Checks in the mail.
Checks in the mail. He literally said, "Hey, man, thanks for letting me know." Cut the check, and and I think that's how a lot of fans. It doesn't have to be $5,000. It can be, a $10 a month subscription. And I don't want to step on that, but we do have the easiest way would be for fans to come on and subscribe monthly. It's the most consistent way to have revenue. And
those monthly subscriptions, it's all about evening out the cash flow.
It's evening out the cash flow.
Man. Yeah. Like I said, I'm in the business. So you offer 3 different kinds of subscriptions. Talk about what level those are and what the benefits are. And yes, he's going to pull up his phone and just read it to you.
Well, so Will, before this started, he gave me a sheet of paper with some of the stuff, and he said he was going to read his. So I said, "Well, can I read my investor or the subscription models?" Yeah.
So you've got $10, $50, and $100 a month.
Yes, so correct. So we got $10. We call that the walk-on investor, and we'll have a quarterly newsletter and updates. We're going to have a quarterly drawing. So this quarter is a Yeti cooler. It's a really nice cooler.
Which one, man? Be specific.
I don't know, man. My son
because Malcolm knows all the models.
Yeah. So we already got a cool Commonwealth NIL sticker on it. So
nice. I've got a Commonwealth NIL sticker on my Yeti.
Yeah, that was cool. So for the walk-on investor, you'll get that and CNIL investor swag. For the $50, we call that the All-American. access to the latest news and updates, 3 entries to the quarterly
Drawing.
prize, CNIL's investor swag. And then we got these cool investor coins. For $50 a month, you'll get one of those. Access to exclusive NIL events with our athletes, and an autographed picture of a NIL athlete.
Now, wait a minute. Show us the coin. So hold that up.
Yeah. So in the veterans community, challenge coins are big. So we wanted to have a fan challenge coin for Virginia Tech. And so for $50 a month, you'll get one of these. You'll also get it for the $100 a month thing. And we've got some other things for the hashtag Run It Back VT. We did design a Justin Mutz, a Hunter Couture, a Darius Maddox, and a Sean Padula collector coin.
Right.
And so those are offered for $100 a piece. So if you're a big fan of one of those guys, you can go to the website and order one of their coins. And or if you want all 4, you can get all 4 of them for $350.
Right.
And we will mint those. We're going to run that special all the way up till the end of August, and then we'll mint those in September and get them out ASAP.
Okay, but that's part of the merch shopping. Yeah. So let's get back to the memberships. Yeah.
And then so for the $100 a month, you'll have all the things I just mentioned, plus TSL subscription.
Right.
And
a 1-year subscription to TSL.
Yeah,
which is $100 value.
Which is $100 value.
Yeah.
And then you'll be able to get personalized social media shout outs. So let's say your 6-year-old son really loves Darius Maddox, and so he can give you a shout out for his birthday. So there's be some cool things.
Right. So it's not a social media shout out from Commonwealth NIL. It's from your athletes.
Yeah, it'll
be
from your athlete.
Nice.
Yeah, it'll be cool, man.
Yeah.
And there's some platforms that already do those. But so we'll be able to help facilitate that for tech fans.
So for me, here's how I look at it. So being in the subscription business, we charge, Tech Sideline charges $10 a month and $100 a year.
Yeah.
And for that amount of money, we have to deliver that amount of value. We have to deliver the product. Really what you're offering is a chance to contribute to the pool of money. Mm-hmm. I don't, this is going to sound bad, but it's not like you're sending them $100 worth of merchandise. That's not how this works. The money goes into the collective, and it can then be used to sign athletes to contracts and compensate them for NIL and all that sort of thing. So here's the way I look at that. And we're going to talk about this throughout the podcast.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of scary headlines about NIL. If you pay attention to NIL, you know the name John Ruiz. Mm-hmm. He's a super rich University of Miami fan.
I think he's brother-in-law to the head coach, isn't he? Didn't he somehow kill?
That's interesting. I don't know that.
I believe so.
But Ruiz owns Life.
Check that out while we're talking.
He owns the company Life Wallet, right? So he's throwing around ridiculous numbers for NIL money for Miami athletes. Yeah. And that scares tech fans. Are like, how in the world can we compete with that? We don't have donors that can sign one kid to a $9 million contract. Yeah. So the way I view this, and this subscription model that you're offering is a perfect conduit to this, is that, and you and I talk about this all the time when we talk, Virginia Tech can successfully crowdsource NIL. The fans all the way down at the lowest level can have an impact and help Commonwealth NIL and other, I think there's Triumph NIL and Hot Route, help these 3 collectives and organizations that are serving NIL athletes of Virginia Tech to generate. I don't think you're going to see one Virginia Tech person serve up a $5 to $10 million contract for one player. You know. But we can raise pretty big numbers as a group, as a collective, ironically.
As a collective, yes.
So I ran some numbers using your subscription model, and I'm going to start with the small and go to the tall.
Yeah, do.
All right. So let's say you got 500 people at the $10 a month level, 200 at the $50 a month level, and 100 at the $100 a month level. That's $25,000 a month. That's $300,000 a year coming into Commonwealth
Yeah.
NIL. If you have 1,000 people at $10 a month, 500 people at $50 a month, and 250 people at $100 a month, those still aren't big numbers.
Not big numbers.
In terms of number of people. The money becomes $60,000 a month, which is $720,000 a year coming into Commonwealth NIL. Now let's go with larger numbers.
Let's do what we should.
And these numbers that I'm about to read to you are completely doable. I know how many people subscribe to Tech Sideline. I know how many people subscribe to, I've talked to Andy Bitter, how many people subscribe to The Athletic. These numbers are on par with that. And we know how many people are in the Hockey Club. It's almost 30,000 people.
Yes.
There's 65,000 fans. There are probably 25,000 season ticket holders.
Well, and I think I saw
So wait a minute. Let me read the numbers.
Oh, sorry.
So if you have 5,000 subs at the $10 level, 1,000 at the $50 a month level, and 500 at the $100 a month level, you're bringing in $150,000 a month, $1.8 million a year and that's just into Commonwealth NIL, just off of subscriptions. And that money can have a huge impact.
It can have a huge impact. And those are real doable numbers. You know, I saw a study, and I think it was that Virginia Tech had 2.7 million fans. I don't know if you guys saw that.
Wow.
Virginia Tech is in the, I put us in the top 15 as fan bases. Numerically, we may be in the top 30, but passion-wise, we're in an elite level fan base. And in my conversations with athletes, they see it. I mean, when they're walking through airports, guys, when you go on vacation or you're at a gas station going to the beach, everybody's like, hey, go Hokies. And our athletes see that. And we can, with a simple group of numbers like you just mentioned, we get to the $1.8 million level as consistent revenue. And then, you and I were talking about, there's 67,000 fans that come to Virginia Tech home football games. There's 6 home football games. If 30,000 of those fans were to spend $100 on NIL merchandise, that's $3 million.
I know.
And that's over 6 events. So, if you set aside $20-25 when you come and buy an NIL sponsored T-shirt, whether it be from us or Triumph or anybody, you're going to be able to help. And these are numbers that are real doable.
They're so doable.
Yeah, they're so doable.
I say this periodically throughout the years. I am floored by the generosity of Virginia Tech fans when they believe in something. And so another point I really wanted to make here is that, so you hear about John Ruiz supposedly offering, I think we'll get into this later. I believe he was the conduit for the $9.5 million offer that was made to a University of Miami recruit. And we're going to tell this story later. Yeah. And you're like, oh, whoop-de-doo, $1.8 million a year. You still can't compete with $9.5 million a year. You know what? This stuff was going on under the table previously. Sure. I've been in this business 25 years. I could name names. I could tell you recruits that verbal to Virginia Tech and then got offered under the table. I'm talking about past stories, $200,000 to go to an SEC school. So what do you think they did? They took it.
Yeah, sure.
And these are the kids that you see decommit and then go to an SEC school. Mm-hmm. That not in every case, folks, but I know of cases where that did happen.
Yeah, it was not uncommon.
So historically with Virginia Tech, you've had this issue where other schools would cheat their butts off. And I can also tell you through my experience of 25 years with Virginia Tech is this fan base doesn't really cheat. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that no cheating goes on, but it is not wholly embraced by the fan base. I've talked to big money donors who are like, I'm not doing that. Yeah, it'd be nothing for these guys to leave $5,000 in an envelope in the recruit's hotel room, but they just don't do that. So, and I'll get to my point here in a second.
I think your point is going to be well served.
So in the past, Virginia Tech has lost athletes to schools that were willing to cheat, and it was all under the table. Well, now we're above the table. And so if you're the kind of fan that is frustrated by stuff like this from the past, this is your opportunity to legally contribute to something that will help keep athletes This is not used to draw athletes to Virginia Tech. It's to help keep athletes at Virginia Tech. You don't want kids coming to Virginia Tech having 2 good years or a good year and then transferring out because the NIL deal is better somewhere else. So in addition to the point about being able to crowdsource, there's a point about this is your chance to do something above board that's completely by the rules that'll help Virginia Tech.
And that is such a great point. I've spoken with a lot of our coaches, and they do recruit a certain type of athlete that wants to be a Hokie.
Yeah.
The culture here is one of the Hokie way, Hokie respect. And so we're seeing that throughout. I've had dozens and dozens of meetings with athletes. None of them had said that their primary goal was to make money. It's always been to compete athletically and academically. And if Nick and Commonwealth can bring them some opportunities or resources, they would be more than happy to do it. And so I think that's the kind of athlete Virginia Tech has historically recruited. Now we'll be in the conversation with folks that want to be Hokies, but also may need the resources too. Yeah. And so so many of our athletes come from diverse backgrounds, and this is a way for us to be competitive. And, we always talk about, I see on the message boards, we want the kids that want to be here, and that's 100% true. But when you're making decisions at 18 and your family's struggling, $50,000 somewhere else, maybe just too big of an enticement to not take. Right. Now, with these numbers, Virginia Tech should be able to compete, and really, that's going to make them more competitive on the field.
And so a couple of things while you were talking, and I'll see if I can remember them both. Number one, it's interesting to hear you say that, because I admit I've gotten a little cynical over time. When you spend all your time on Twitter, and a kid says he's gotten
terrible place,
and a kid in high school says he's gotten an offer from a certain school, and one of his buddies responds with, "Go get that bag, man," and he puts up the little emoji of 3 bags of cash or whatever. It presents the front that that's what the athletes are in it for, and I think you get a little cynical and you think they are in it for that. So it's very interesting to hear you say that you've spoken with a bunch of Virginia Tech athletes, and that's not the first thing they talk about. Right.
I've been so impressed by the caliber of the athletes' personality and how well grounded they are. And honestly, we've spoken with a lot of parents, and I mean, the first thing they say, well, Nick, number one thing he's got to do is or she has to do is compete academically. They all value that educational component. Right. And then they're athletes too, and their parents want them to do well athletically. Now I've had parents say, we want to, our goal is to build that brand so that he or she is more competitive, after they graduate from Virginia Tech, whether it be as social media influencers or going to a professional atmosphere for their sport, and we've made that case too, that we want to help the athlete build their brand. So this may be where we want to say, if you're watching the podcast, if you're on Tech Sideline, go subscribe or go like the Facebook page if you're mine and Will's age. Go follow us on Twitter, and follow the athletes on Twitter. And if you're on Instagram, if you're not on Instagram, get on Instagram, because that's the new thing. And go like Commonwealth NIL, like Triumph, but also go like the athletes.
Yeah. Follow the athletes.
Follow the athletes. So we've had opportunities where our companies really want to know the Instagram numbers of athletes. They want to know the Twitter followers.
Now, I don't want to wag my finger at Virginia Tech fans, but
it's educational.
I circulate around the internet, and I see softball players at other schools and basketball players at other schools, and I see their social media followings, and it's tens of thousands.
Yes.
And bluntly put, in the case of most Virginia Tech athletes, the social media following on Twitter and Instagram is not tens of thousands. It's typically below 10,000. I'm looking at Elizabeth Kitley, ACC Player of the Year.
Yes.
Instagram.
Scholar Athlete of the Year.
a superstar by any stretch of the imagination, and she has 5,665 followers on Instagram. That's not a lot. It should be more.
It should be more.
You know, and so as ridiculous as it sounds, you can help the NIL effort if you're a fan without spending or contributing any money anywhere. Just follow these athletes on their social media accounts and tell your friends to follow.
Well, and guys, it's kind of like, remember when Virginia Tech maybe got a bowl game or two that we probably didn't earn during the season,
right?
Because we knew our fans were going to show up at the bowl game.
Yeah.
It's kind of that same philosophy. We have that passionate fan base, but we don't seem to engage as well on social media as some of the other schools that also have passionate fan bases.
Well, and one of these days I'm going to run the numbers on. I've done this exercise before. Like I've looked at the official football Twitter accounts for other schools. And Virginia Tech is larger than some of them, but some of them are way larger than Virginia Tech. So there is kind of a social media thing there that there's a little bit of a disconnect. And don't blame that on Pete Morris. It's not all Pete Morris.
No. Oh, I've seen that. And I have never met him. And I think he leaves.
He's on the way out. He
Yeah.
starts his new job this Friday, as a matter of fact.
Congratulations, Pete.
So the other point I wanted to make was we're sitting here talking about this, and to be clear, again, this is not used to recruit athletes.
No.
Not directly. That's against the rules, or to recruit transfers. But if you have a healthy NIL program like what you are talking about, it lets an athlete know, if I go to Virginia Tech and I am successful and I do develop, then there will be opportunities for me there. I won't need to go somewhere else.
I think that is the perfect way to say it.
Yeah.
You want to have a healthy, robust, sustainable NIL program at your university, and that's what we're trying to do at Commonwealth. And I say sustainable because you see, whether it be a $9.5 million deal or some of the things that we've seen maybe rumored at Texas A&M. Or at Tennessee, you see these things, and I don't think those models are sustainable. It really does have to come from your fans being engaged and wanting to have success in NIL, and whether it's a subscription, T-shirt, hopefully a coin, other things that we'll have, or attending an event. We're planning pre-game events for a lot of Virginia Tech football games this year. So, hey, check us, follow us on Twitter. Make sure you hit us, like us on Instagram and Facebook, and get that latest information. Follow us at CommonwealthNIL.com and know where the events are at. And if you can, try to attend one. Yeah. That'll directly go to help a robust, sustainable NIL program at Virginia Tech.
And so, the announcement that you've got Mutz, Padula, Maddox, and Couture all signed.
# running back VT.
I know, as a person whose livelihood depends upon the success of the athletic programs, I feel more comfortable knowing that these guys who have achieved at a high level are being rewarded for what they've accomplished.
Yeah.
We're not throwing $50,000 at a 3-star, tight end out of high school where you don't know if that's going to work out or not. These are players who, in air quotes, have earned it under the current NIL rules. So I just feel a lot more comfortable knowing that those guys are being taken care of.
Yeah, and so other schools were having conversations about trying to get these folks. Again, Mike Young has recruited a caliber of player, character-wise, that is really focused on winning here at Virginia Tech. Yeah. But it does feel better to know that our fan base has already responded to help those four. And we're going to talk to other players on the basketball team, men's and women's, moving forward. Those two programs are on the rise. We've got two excellent coaches, a wonderful, wonderful culture, and an undervalued venue. I mean, man, Castle Coliseum games are. Yeah, I mean, when it is rocking, it is rocking. Yeah. That is a fun place to watch basketball, men's and women's. I used to coach a little, and when I say little, it was a third grade AAU team.
They were literally little,
girls basketball team, and we would go watch And to see those girls walk into that Castle Coliseum and then to see the older, women's team play, it was just a great environment, man.
Oh, I remember as a kid, I don't remember how old I was. It was the first time I ever saw Castle. It was empty. It was the off season, and my dad's a Virginia Tech grad, and we lived in Radford, and he took us in there. I walked into Castle and got dizzy because the seats are so steep.
Steep.
It's really a cool venue. Interesting tangent there. So let's see. I do want to talk about some of the NIL stories that have been going around with you. So what we're going to do right now is we're about half an hour, 40 minutes into it. We're going to take a break.
Okay, cool.
Because Nick and I are of an age and we need to hit the restroom. Yes. And we'll be right back in about 3 to 5 minutes with the rest of the show.
Maybe we get a supplement sponsor next time.
That's not a bad idea. All right, so welcome back into the show. We have, for the second part, we have invited Nick Brown up into Chris Coleman's red shirt chair. You got to point up, Nick. You got to point up to the, there you go.
Do I have to flex too?
This guy's a natural, man.
Don't go there, man.
I already had a wink and a flex in the first 10 seconds.
So Nick's been following the live chat. Nick Brown's been following the live chat. He's got some questions he's going to ask Nick Rush. We're also going to tell some NIL stories, the kind of stuff that has been scary to people. And the latest one to me that's been interesting is the back and forth about it. So I'm just going to read this to you. This came out a day or two ago, and this is from an on3.com article. So there was a quarterback recruit. It's not like he's the number one recruit in the country. He's ranked anywhere from 25 to 50th in the country. So one of the top quarterbacks in the country. Yeah. Kid's name is Jaden Rashada. Okay, he's out of California, and he was coming down to a decision between Miami and Florida, and so he committed to the University of Miami, and then an attorney out of California named Michael Caspino talked to On3, went public with stuff you're not supposed to do.
He kind of bragged on three.
He did. He basically said, so Caspino basically said, I'm representing Rashada, the quarterback, and he had a $9.5 million NIL offer from Miami. He had an $11 million NIL offer from Florida, but that Florida NIL collective is too dysfunctional. So my guy Rashada is going to Miami instead. And here's the quote. Jaden left millions on the table, said Caspino, who confirmed he represented Rashada in his NIL negotiations with collectives across the country. Quote, millions. He did not pick the highest offer. He went there because he loves Miami, the coaches, and the opportunity, unquote. Oh my gosh, that's not allowed. You are not allowed as a high school recruit or even as a transfer, I understand, to negotiate with collectives. So it led to this funny thing where, and Caspino doubled down on it by calling the Gator Collective, and that's its actual name, Gator Collective.
Yeah.
Calling Gator Collective dysfunctional. All right. And so then Caspino starts getting called out by other guys I follow on Twitter, and they're like, dude, you can't do that. That's illegal. You know, you're putting your high school kid at extreme risk of not being eligible to play. And so the Gator Collective comes out and says, we're not dysfunctional. He thinks we're dysfunctional because we wouldn't talk to him because what he's doing is not allowed, you know?
Yeah.
And then Rashada himself had to put out a statement where he's like, whoa, nope, wasn't doing that. I'm going to Miami because I love Miami. So I mean, that's the kind of stuff that Tech fans hear and they're like, oh, what are we going to do about this?
Yeah, and so I mean, so just so Tech fans know, we haven't talked to any high school athletes, and just because you're not supposed to be doing those things. Right. But we want to have that we're functional, and we always have our athletes in our best interest, and we're not going to do anything that would jeopardize their eligibility, because we want to see Virginia Tech and our athletes be successful. And a lot of this stuff is, especially sometimes on Twitter, man, you see folks that put themselves above the product. I feel like that, at Commonwealth NIL, our players will always be first and foremost in making sure that they're competitive, but everything's above board, and we want to make sure that. And so, it's going to be a lot of the character that our coaches are recruiting. I can tell you right now, you should be, as a Hokie fan, be proud of that. We haven't run into any of this. So, there was a spat, I think, Will, between Texas A&M and Alabama.
Yes, right.
And
now, first of all, let me correct. It's Caspino is the lawyer, not Gaspino. So Michael Caspino. Continue.
Yeah. Well, the spat between Texas A&M and Alabama, and we don't know if it's true or not, right, Nick? You don't know if it's true or not, but there was the rumor out there. I think it started out as a message board post.
A message board
post that Texas A&M spent $30 million on their recruiting class.
Via NIL.
Which is not allowed. Well, guess what happened? Texas A&M didn't dispute it.
Yeah.
They didn't mind that rumor being out there.
Because it's good for recruiting.
How many 5-star and high 4-star guys go, all right, well, let's schedule an official visit? And it only became problematic when Alabama started saying, well, wait a second, that's not right. Mm-hmm. And so then you had the spat, and then there was the denial, then there's, a half denial. And it's the same with, I think this same attorney, didn't he represent the Kansas State player, a basketball player that transferred to Miami?
I believe it's the same guy.
I think it's the same guy.
Mm-hmm. So
and if not, I apologize, but yeah.
So this kid transferred from Kansas State to Miami and announced that he got a $400,000 NIL contract to do so. I think that's the number.
I think the lawyer announced it.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And so then it wasn't there. Sorry for not getting our facts straight before we went live with the podcast, but I think Isaiah Wong, who's one of Miami's star players, his response was, hey, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Where's my $400,000?
Right. And then it just so happens, I think that guy claimed to represent both of them.
Mm-hmm. Oh, gosh.
So, I mean, we're not seeing that here. You're not going to see that throughout the country. Yeah. We talked about sustainability, $9.5 million for a quarterback that may not pan out is not sustainable. It's also bad for the locker room. In our conversations with folks, they want to make sure the locker room is coherent. Or cohesive, cohesive. Like obviously, won't coherent too. You can be coherent too, but cohesive, and you don't want to destroy that locker room. And the best time of these players' lives will be while they're in college, and you want to make sure that those teams are together, one goal, academic and athletic success.
Yeah, and looking in college locker rooms, it's in the past it's always been about playing time. Yeah, that could be a possible chemistry issue. Now you have another possible chemistry issue, and this will manifest itself over the course of years. This is not something you can know right away.
Oh, you can't know it right away.
Well, I know Isaiah Wong, like you said, he kind of got upset about that, and he kind of had like a holdout, like you see in the NFL or whatever, when they want a higher contract. So he kind of held out and was like, well, where's my money? And then had to put a statement saying, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done that. That was selfish of me or whatever. And so like you said, the playing time, whatever, that's the age-old, ever since the game of basketball and football has ever been invented, that's a big thing. But now all of a sudden, there could be the starting quarterback right now at Miami, and he's not getting $9.5 million. But then all of a sudden, this freshman comes in. And
what's their quarterback?
Van Dyke. He's the guy.
Is it Tyler Van Dyke? He's a good quarterback.
He's a freshman.
Yeah. He's proven himself.
Exactly, a freshman, and all of a sudden, this other kid from high school is coming up, and he's making, I'm just going to say $9.5 million more than you. and you're proven.
So let's drill down into a little
on.
further. Van Dyke's already buddies with his offensive line. He's taking him out to dinner, and the freshman comes in. You see this kind of stuff in movies all the time. You can just see Van Dyke telling his offensive line, let the kid take a few hits.
Yeah.
Let him earn his $9.5 million.
It's like the longest yard.
It's you got the longest yard. There's some of those recruiting or those recruiting movies from like the 80s and 90s where the starting quarterback rolls in a Lamborghini, which I think was the Texas, University of Texas quarterback's getting a Lamborghini.
Yep. Oh my gosh!
Which that's above board because it's a dealership, and we're in constant communication with dealers for athletes. We haven't gotten secured any of those yet, but we are talking to several, and those are above board name, image, and likeness deals, and we're working on those, but. We don't have a Lamborghini dealership.
Not nearby anyway.
If any TSL fan is a Lamborghini dealer owner, reach out to Commonwealth NIL, please.
Please enter the chat.
Yes.
All right. So Nick, what have people been asking on the live stream that would be interesting that we haven't covered?
So one of the biggest ones, your son actually answered it in the chat, but of course this is going to be recorded and people are going to listen to this later on. Are the players locked into a contract?
In other words, is it exclusive?
Yeah, so at Commonwealth NIL, we did not do exclusive contracts because we want success for our athletes. And there may be connections that some of the other NIL companies have that could be profitable for our athletes. So we did non-exclusive agreements, and also. We just think it's best for the athlete. We want success for our athletes. We'll help all our athletes at the same level.
So we talk about this all the time about how jam-packed athletes' lives are even before NIL came along. Did the athletes, when you talk to them, do they talk about this as part of the process of signing a contract with Commonwealth NIL? The athlete has to do something.
Correct. That's one of the rules. It can't be pay for play. Mm-hmm. So we really didn't discuss that earlier. So you can't offer one of the quarterbacks $500 a touchdown. You can't do if you break 1,000 yards, you get
your
X
contract
dollars.
value goes up.
Your contract value goes up. So and the athlete has to do something for it. Now some of the crazy stories you've been seeing is does one tweet equal $9 million? Just don't. You wouldn't think that would be
spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. It doesn't. But so all of our athletes with our contracts, they're non-exclusive contracts, but they do help promote #RunItBackVT, Commonwealth NIL subscriptions and merchandise. Mm-hmm. It's to their advantage to do that. It's to their advantage to do that. And we're also associated with a couple charities. We wanted our athletes not to be just about the money, not just about the opportunity, but also to give back to the community. Mm-hmm. And we're partnered with Buddy Check 22, which is a veterans group that raises awareness about veteran suicide. Myself and my son Forrest are both veterans. We wanted to be partnered with them. And then my wife and I have a charity where we raise funds for local women who have been stricken with cancer. So much of cancer is not covered by, even if you have the best insurance, whether it's driving to Winston-Salem or Duke or UVA to get the best treatment or experimental treatment. Some of the, just the gas nowadays is expensive. So we have partnered with that, and our charity raises funds through sporting events. So it kind of made sense. Like we have a bruiser boot camp run where you run 2 miles and have 4 boot camp stations.
Well, maybe you do. I don't.
Well, I don't. I'm one of the quote unquote drill sergeants. So I make people do push-ups and carry ammo cans and holler at them and stuff. And it's a real fun event. It's sponsored by Corona Premier, and it's been fun. We've had it for the last 4 or 5 years.
So is part of your business model, and have you had companies approach you wanting access to the athletes to represent them?
Yes.
Or do the companies go directly to the athletes, or is there a relationship?
Yeah, so you can do both. But we've gone out to solicit deals, and we've had some success with that. Got a lot of proposals out there. Companies are interested. And those are some of the folks we were talking about looking at Instagram numbers. And,
Right.
so again, go out and like Commonwealth NIL on Instagram, follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and then go out and hit our athletes too. I know we've talked about that a couple of times, but we really do need to reinforce that. And, because companies, when we're soliciting these deals, going out and trying to gather them, those numbers are important. And, we talk about the New River Valley sometimes. We talk about New River Valley like we can't be competitive with larger metro areas. And to a certain extent, just numerically, we may not be able to. But, sitting right here, and we're at the Virginia Tech Corporate Research Center, TSL headquarters, there are over 200 companies located in the Corporate Research Center at Virginia Tech. All have some sort of relationship with Virginia Tech, whether it be the foundation, which they're renting space from, looking for Virginia Tech graduates to come work, whether it be software engineers, civil engineers, public relations folks, or they were founded by Virginia Tech alumni who, a lot of times, and we've seen it over the years, they move away and they go, man, I really miss those living in that community. And they move back to Blacksburg and the New River Valley. So there's a lot of opportunities here that we're going to try to have folks participate in.
Yeah. All right. So, Nick Brown, anything else you want to throw out there?
Yeah, there's some more questions. You mentioned Tech, UVA, Liberty, ODU, all the other Commonwealth schools. With Commonwealth NIL subscription service, whatever, you can get that. Does that money, is it exclusive Virginia Tech, or will it spread out to other schools? And that's what some people, I guess,
that's a great question. And let me address that name. So one direct answer, it only goes to Virginia Tech athletes. The name is probably due to my own, sometimes you get in a bubble. I was in the Virginia legislature. I was a Virginia legislator, and we use the term Commonwealth a lot, obviously, when you're in government like that. And it's just a name that came to me for the company.
Right.
We represent. Any subscription will go to Virginia Tech athletes.
Just Virginia Tech.
That's a good question.
That's a great question.
And then, I think I can guess the answer for this question, but someone asked, who settled on the Cardinal logo? They think it's a little random, but...
based on the state.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At least it's not a cardinal with teeth, so you won't think it's Louisville, right?
Yeah, and so many things that we would have liked to have done are trademarked by Virginia Tech, and so we couldn't have done those. That's a great question. I happen to own some other companies, and I always use Cardinal in the name too. So it's again my own living in a bubble. Yeah, that's me living in a bubble, man.
Yeah. So something else, we touched on this earlier, but I did want to clarify it. So part of our relationship with you is that some or all of the athletes you sign will be made available to come on Tech Sideline podcasts. So we'll get a definite content bump out of that. But that also makes sense for them to come on what is a large podcast and promote the offerings and benefit themselves. In other words, yes, over in Commonwealth NIL, we do have Justin Mutt's merchandise. We've got commemorative coins and whatever else you guys come up with along down the line. And frankly, if you've got an athlete that comes on our podcast and he has signed some other outside deal, we'll help him promote that too.
Yeah, sure. And I think, for us, a rising tide lifts all boats. Yeah. So we think, with our arrangement, our partnership, we think we can help you guys grow. We can help us grow. But the other entities, everyone doing well will make Virginia Tech athletics better.
Yeah,
and that's our goal. Coming from a legislator's standpoint, I was lucky enough to be involved in some big economic development projects over my career, whether it be the Amazon, which Virginia Tech gets brand new undergrads degrees here in the New River Valley, which is good for our economy. Volvo trucks, which is good for our economy. Virginia Tech sports is a good economic driver. Yeah. The better Virginia Tech sports is, the more options we're going to have when you're in town for hotels, because it means more folks, the occupancy rate goes up, so there's availability to build new hotels, whether it be restaurants. I was fortunate enough to own a restaurant here in Blacksburg for several years. We sold it, but I can tell you this: I've seen the numbers of when Virginia Tech sports are good. How many people come and watch and eat and drink at my restaurant, and how many didn't, and when they're not good. And so, I think that being competitive in NIL is going to make athletics more competitive, which again, that rising tide lifts all boats, and there's going to be plenty of opportunity for everybody.
So I was just thinking back to earlier in the conversation. I know that you and I probably started talking in February, maybe even earlier than that, because I remember conversations we had where we talked about the importance of NIL for football. And then the men's basketball team goes out and wins the ACC championship. And it was interesting the way the conversation changed.
Yeah.
And months later, your first 4 signees are all men's basketball players, and you have a major promotional campaign built around the basketball team. It was interesting how fast that conversation changed.
Let me ask Nick Brown, do you know what the major campaign is
For
basketball?
The Commonwealth NIL campaign.
Yeah.
We just mentioned
Run
the
it
hashtag.
back.
Run it back.
Hashtag run it back,
Run it back
VT.
with the VT.
win another one of those right there.
Yeah, man, that's it. That's it. Yeah. No, I've only repeated that about 1 billion times over the last couple months. But it's going to be real important for football. That's where we need that sustainability. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's a bigger program. You have 85 scholarship athletes during the season, 20 walk-ons. And so, we're following what other folks are doing. That's why we want to build this subscription model up. We want folks to participate in that. And, look, NIL is not going to be for everyone. We understand that. There's some detractors with that. And I've ran across businesses like, look, Nick, that's not my thing. I understand that. That doesn't make you a bad kid. But if NIL is, if it's something you're interested in, a subscription model is really, really helpful. Yeah. It gives you consistent revenue. That you can build contracts on, and you can make sure that we have the resources. Yeah. And I do say this: you can cancel at any time on our. Once you come check out the website CommonwealthNIL.com, you'll see the rules, but you can cancel at any time also.
Yeah. So Nick Brown, anything else?
Yeah, one more question, and it's kind of asking you a question, and then it also kind of directs to you to get a general sense of how much money like these athletes can truly make. Someone asked the question, how many Justin Mutz posters sold? Oh, yeah. And so of course that'll show how much Justin Mutz made from that, and how much Justin Mutz can make from you guys as well.
Cool.
Well, depending upon the specifics of the deals you signed, the Justin Mutz poster is still the largest NIL deal in Virginia Tech athletics.
Congratulations.
Well, we had him sign 750 of the posters, and the initial burst, I'll cut to the chase. As of the last report I had, which was at the beginning of June, we had sold about $50,000 worth of posters, and about close to it, and 38,000 of that went to Justin. Yeah. And we have been promoting it a little bit more in June, and that's an ongoing thing. We'll keep promoting it until it sells out.
And man, we can maybe put it on the website, Commonwealth NIL.
Not a bad idea. Yeah. And I actually thought about that. We should probably put it on your website and have it bounce over to Bison Printing, where people can order, and so finish that out. But that is an update on the Mutz poster. It was very successful, and we kind of did that on a lark, but as we got into it, I thought about 2 things. I thought about, this is what NIL is really about. This is fun, and the fans are getting something for their money. But it was also kind of an early shot saying, this is what can happen if you're a successful athlete at Virginia Tech. Oh, you can be successful in NIL as well.
That's a great point. Now, I would say that our deals with Justin is very similar. We think the economics of it's very similar to what you're doing, and we took a cue from what Tech Sideline did. Very similar numbers, and you can respond by going to CommonwealthNIL.com and checking out the merchandise. And we if you were excited about Darius Maddox huge shot against Clemson. You can purchase that. Obviously Hunter Couture, played a big part of that. And then Sean Badula coming on at the end of that season. We can respond by making sure those folks are have opportunities. And, we talked about that this whole time. And you can always go to CommonwealthNIL.com and check that stuff out. You got a T-shirt. If T-shirts are your thing, hoodies, my daughter wears a hoodie, and if it's like 90 degrees.
Yeah, a lot of people do.
Yeah, if you're a hoodie guy, a hoodie gal, check out the hoodies, man.
We got to get a poster shop set up. We got this huge archive of.
We've got to do that.
And what's interesting is we can even do posters of individual players, but we can also do. By the way, let me go on a tangent here.
Love it.
A guy who missed out because NIL came late was. And this is going to sound strange, but I'll explain. Reggie Floyd. Have you ever seen the photo that our photographer took? I believe it was the 2019 UVA game of Reggie Floyd standing over UVA quarterback Bryce Perkins. You ever see that picture? I have
seen that, yes.
It looks like the Muhammad Ali picture.
It really does.
It's a rare football picture in that there's been action on the field that it's just finished. There is no one else in the frame. And it's Reggie Floyd literally standing over Bryce Perkins. Perkins is in a heap on the ground, and Floyd's standing over him looking at him. And the photographer told me it was just an instant in time. And that's the same story behind the Muhammad Ali picture. He just flexed instantaneously and got a picture of it where Reggie stood up, stood over Perkins and looked at him. Picture got taken, and he walked off. We could have sold a ton of those posters. We probably still could if we
probably stood,
And Reggie could have benefited from.
And look, that's the cool thing that we can do with Commonwealth NIL and Tech Sideline partnership is that we'll be able to connect these fans with stuff like that. That's a moment in time. That was a split second photograph. But folks like us remember those things, and they're important to us. Some of the most important. Some of the funnest events I've ever been to in my life, some of the most important events I've been to in my life, outside of family and marriages and births, are Virginia Tech sporting events. My wife Jennifer and I, our very first date was the rainout game with Georgia Tech.
Oh gosh!
Yeah, great event, right?
honey, you get out and push. Trying to get out of that muddy lot.
Luckily, we were sitting in the president's box that game, so we didn't get wet.
Humble brag,
or she would have. Well, that was a humble brag, man. I'm sorry. Or she may not have gone on a second date. She's like, "Nah, man, this guy's too dangerous." But
so anyway, we have this huge archive of photography. And some of it is what I would call generic. It's pictures of fans. It's pictures of Lane Stadium. And you could sell those sorts of things that don't directly benefit any particular athlete, but just could go into the Commonwealth NIL pot.
Go into the team pool. Yeah. And, our goal, our ultimate goal at Commonwealth NIL, and I think Triumph and Loaded and Hot Route would be to have everybody on the team participating in NIL, not just your stars.
Yeah.
Because those folks, I think we were talking about this in the break. These athletes are very, very busy. Yeah. We're trying to get a hold of and confirm everything this week with, the four big announcements: Justin Mutch, Hunter Couture, Darius Maddox, Sean Padula, their merchandise offered on CommonwealthNIL.com. Been trying to get a hold of those guys all week, and they're super busy. They're running camps over here at Virginia Tech. Yeah. And, when you're talking to them, they're enjoying what they're doing. I never hear them complain, but is it a grind? Mm-hmm. It is a grind what these guys and gals do.
Yeah. And of course, they're not even at home. They're not seeing their family. That's the biggest thing, personally to me, for them, is that they don't get to go home during the summer. They got to do the camps, and I'm sure they love it, but you miss mom and dad every now and then.
Yeah, and that's probably, Nick, that's a great point. And when Will and I were playing Little League and high school sports, it was less of a grind because you weren't on the road playing AAU.
No, you weren't doing any of that stuff.
All week, your high school team was your focus. No. Now it's 7-on-7. It's AAU. It's I think Emma Limley's playing some softball.
Like Team USA
Team USA or
Team
something.
Canada, something like that.
Yeah. One of the girls I coached in AAU basketball plays on a travel softball team out of Georgia. And she lives in Reiner.
Wow.
And they just travel all over the place. So I think they get used to it.
Yeah.
You know, one of these days they're going to wake up and go, man, phew, that's a lot of work.
Yeah.
That's a game for the young. So anything else from the chat?
I'm gonna go with this as the one last question, and it's a pretty big one. You're mainly focusing on basketball, running back, VT. What about other opportunities for other athletes in other sports, not just football or basketball?
Softball.
Softball,
yeah.
baseball. I mean, Emma Lemley could be she probably is the next Keely Richard coming up. She's going to have a lot of stuff. And then wrestling, too. I think Mekhi Lewis was the first
Mekhi
NIL
Lewis,
guy.
Mekhi Lewis, huge social media following.
Yeah.
He is a star in his own. So we have talked to players on all those schools, or excuse me, all those teams. We are working on deals for other athletes. We did. We did want to finalize the hashtag Run It Back VT campaign. And so we've started out with that, but that does not mean we're only focusing on basketball and football. You know, I'm working really close with a two-time All-American on the Virginia Tech wrestling team now. And I'll tell you this, our coaches have been very accommodating and understanding. They understand that NIL is important, and they're seeing it out on the recruiting trail.
Yeah, no doubt. All right. Appreciate it. Time to wrap it up. Anything else you can think of? Like you want to sign off with a final? I think we've pretty much covered everything. But
well, no, I mean, I would ask folks to consider subscribing. Considering looking at our website, CommonwealthNIL.com, and then go follow us on social media, man. If you can, that'll be a big way to help us get that message out. And, our mission statement is engage Hokie Nation, turn our athletes into stars and stars into our athletes.
Yeah.
And that's what we want to do at Commonwealth NIL.
And so from a Tech Sideline standpoint, like I said, we will drop our affiliate link with Commonwealth NIL into the video description. As soon as I can get some time later on today, I am going to place the Commonwealth NIL ads on our site. And then I think we'll have a formal announcement later.
Yeah.
I've been busy with a message board programming project that is going to eat up my afternoon. But
guys, Will actually works really hard.
In
case you just thought it was a beautiful face behind the message board, he is a really, really hard worker.
This does not come naturally to me. the podcast hosting stuff doesn't come naturally. Yeah.
You've done great, man.
Yeah. Well, appreciate it. Nick, thanks for coming on. And Nick
Thank you
Brown,
for
thanks
having
for coming on. And again, that is Commonwealth NIL, and you'll be hearing more about them from Tech Sideline in the future. So thanks for listening and watching, and we'll see you on the next podcast.